Butterfly Effect by Nikayla Sarai. Chapter 6. Red Lines. Not every time genie enjoyed the beginning of a warp, where you had to dip yourself into the rushing river of time to find the one human lifeline out of billions that your device had chosen to be your buddy. Thomas wasn't one of those genies. He'd always enjoyed moving through the currents, catching glimpses of people's day-to-day lives as he headed toward the siren call of his watch, searching for the telltale golden sparks indicating he'd found the right lifeline. Even with the disappointment of constant green warps, he still hadn't lost his liking for this part, where he'd weave in and out of the multicolored lines. No two were exactly the same, the coloration of each one unique to the individual, each giving him hints to the type of lives they'd led to this point. There! Golden sparks twinkling through the rainbow time stream, his new warp. A jolt of anticipation, a series of alternating purples and greens, zipped through him as he ducked and dodged among the lifelines, only to have his heart drop like an anvil at the bright crimson lifeline that confronted him, unmistakably gleaming with his watch's mark. Thomas groaned, pressing the palms of his hands to his eyes. Today was not his day. Why red? Why? He should turn around and go back to Joan right now, because there was no use pretending to even have a flicker of hope that this warp would end in anything other than green. Even before his curse had taken effect, the number of successful warps he'd had with this particular color could be counted on one hand. Thomas exhaled, dropping his hands to brush against the vibrant strand. Humans were tricky to work with when their lifelines were in the red. They were individuals who'd already made a mark on the world. They were influential, powerful, trailblazers. One wrong decision in the warp and wham! They're experiencing life as wallflowers in the tapestry of life. Reds never liked getting those beige threads. They were the most likely to choose to return to their original lifelines to get their fame and prestige back. "Why you?" Thomas muttered, holding the red line between his fingers as he separated it from the time stream in preparation to pull the human into the warp. His eyebrows shot up. "Okay, seriously, why you?" he asked, eyes creasing at the singular color that confronted him. Sure, the lifeline wasn't all the same solid shade of red. The color constantly shifted from a red so pale it was nearly pink to a red dark enough to be purple. At the moment, it showed a bright blood red, the shade that colored lifelines when the individual was being particularly influential on the world. Thomas shook his head, fighting against the spark of interest flickering in his mind, even as he dipped into the lifeline to see just who he was dealing with. It was uncommon for humans to stick with one color in their thread of life, rare for that color to be red, even rarer to have the lifeline be this vivid of a shade at the beginning of a warp. The goal was, after all, to give the person a chance to improve their lives. Who was this human? Why had they been chosen by his watch when they were already making an impact on the world? Roman Sanders. Huh. Thomas tilted his head, raising an eyebrow. He'd heard of Roman before, in passing, while on previous warps in the States. Why pick him? He wondered, his confusion only growing as he skimmed through the man's life. He was famous, of course. Red threads were, in one way or another. In this case, it was because Roman was a well-known actor currently making it big on Broadway. No, the lifeline showed he was leaving the stage to film for his first major role for a movie. Thomas drew the lifeline further away from the main time stream, tugging at the hazy half of Roman's life that hadn't yet come to pass. He shook his head as the red color continued into most of the frayed edges that split from Roman's main line. He clicked his tongue. Judging from the potential paths his future could take, this movie would only make the man's life brighter and better. His life was on the upswing. Thomas frowned, returning to the man's past. Most actors had black marks marring their lifeline, signaling that a tragedy, heartbreak, or scandal had taken place. But again, Roman seemed to be the exception. At most, his line had grayed out here and there, but hadn't darkened enough to give a time genie cause to appear. Why, then, had his watch chosen? Thomas tisked. He could look at Roman's lifeline all day, but until he warped with the man, he wouldn't know what past decisions weighed the most heavily on the actor's mind. Letting out a breath, Thomas rolled his shoulders. Time to warp. He brushed the golden sparks resting on Roman's lifeline to anchor himself, his hands blazing in a rainbow prism as he grabbed the point of the lifeline marking the actor's present moment. He caught a glimpse of the actor sitting in a messy dressing room as Thomas tugged at his lifeline. "Roman Sanders," he called, unsurprised to have the bright lines struggle in his grip as the human on the other end fought to stay on the earthly plane. That was a typical reaction. It wasn't like anyone liked suddenly being pulled from one plane to the next. "Your time has come."